I'm milling about with Lauren Meyering, and she's the director and co-writer of Horsegirls, which is showing at this year's Tribeca Film Festival 2025. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. Virtually.
Oh, such a pleasure. I love the movie. I want to know, I know it's based in truth, so just sort of give me background on it, like what inspired it.
Yeah. My best friend Mackenzie, who's a co-writer on it, it's loosely based on her family's story. Her sister, who's named Marguerite, is she is also on the spectrum, and she uh essentially this kind of came about because unfortunately, her mom was re-diagnosed with cancer for a third time. And I was with Mackenzie when she found out, and she said, I never thought about what happens to Marguerite because unfortunately her father passed away in a car accident years prior. And I just was sitting with her and I was like, that is so fascinating. I've never thought about what happens to those who need a caretaker and then they're left, without any. And at the same time, Sandy, her mom, was like, I think Marguerite should come out and like visit you guys and like get her mind off of all this. And she was a really big fan of the show Once Upon a Time, and which is like a Disney show or Disney inspired show. And there was like a convention happening at um, some, convention center in Burbank. And so she was like, okay, she has tickets to that. We're going to go see it. And we accompanied her there. And she went from being just like, just kind of shy and in her own, little world into all of a sudden being like, okay, guys, I'll see you later, like goodbye. And we were just like, oh, okay, great. Have fun, Marguerite, and it was one of those things where it was like she was so in her element and so amongst people that understood her and got her. And in that moment, I was like, I love a niche, kind of love of something and finding your people and just kind of finding your group that you fit in with. So, while hobby horsing wasn't, specifically her thing, um, I had seen the videos of girls years prior doing this and thought it was incredible and was like, why has no one written a movie about this? And what would it be like to, kind of get in and understand the world of hobby horsing, even though from the outside, you know, social media and these viral videos of girls doing this oftentimes will be like, people are kind of laugh at it. But I'm like, no, this is an incredible sport, and I still respect these girls that do it. And so I just thought, how do we make a movie that kind of combines the both? Yeah, so
Yes.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great marriage of the two. And I'm wondering how important it was for you to find an autistic actress for the role. Because, yes, I didn't know at first that she was. I thought
Yeah.
she was doing a brilliant job.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was, to be honest, a huge fear of mine, and not just because it was, oh, how could I find an actress with autism? It wasn't even that. It was just, how can I find an actress who's gonna do this role? So, I mean, there's just everything you could think of, stunts and, riding like riding a bike around that floats and then hobby horsing and singing karaoke and, working with horses, all these things where I'm like, I was just nervous in general of never being able to find the right person. And then, it was just bringing in someone on the spectrum and with autism is it was so important um, to do that correctly, obviously, and do it for, with authenticity. And once we saw Lillian's tape, I mean, I was blown away. I could not believe I mean, it felt like the first time I could like breathe a sigh of relief and be like, I think there is a possibility that there's someone out there to play this role, just in general. And it was, I mean, she was just everything we threw at her. She not only did, but she did flawlessly. Like it was truly incredible what we asked of her and what she was able to bring, and then bring in, of course, her own experiences, which was so important because, of course, there's so much that I'm not going to understand or think about right away. And she worked with our production designer and did an amazing job of being like, oh, let's get these sensory things, or let's, like get this thing that goes on the end of a pencil to help with balance. And just every little detail that she helped bring forward to the role was just so incredible.
And as a director, what were your challenges in directing her?
Honestly, I I was nervous about that, and she was, the first time I met her, she was a little bit shy, and I remember thinking, okay, is she gonna be able to be this big, larger than life character? And then it was like she stepped on set and was her. And then between takes, she'd just go back to being Lillian and just kind of sit there. She'd be tired, and kind of sit on the floor and hang out. But no, I mean, truly, there were things that I was nervous about. She'd be like riding a bike at night, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this poor girl's freezing. Of course, we put her in these overall shorts, and she'd be in her puffer coat, and then the moment we'd start to roll, it was like didn't matter, and there were these things that I was so nervous about where I'm like, okay, karaoke, it's gonna be loud. Like, what can I do to help her? And she just it didn't matter. She just stepped up to the plate, and like anytime there was something that maybe was like a little bit, overstimulating or something like that for her, she had her sister, her twin sister, who is also on the spectrum, who was there as her advocate.
Interesting.
Yes, amazing. And what's funny is I'm also a twin. So we had this amazing bond right off the start.
It's a twin thing going on.
Right? Isn't that funny? And our producer has twin girls. Like it was hysterical how there was just
Wow.
it seemed to be linked. But we also just understood each other even more on that level of, having her sister there to just kind of advocate for her as well if she ever, in the bath scene, for example. Um, I something I would never even think about, but her sister was like, yeah, it's like her hands being wet for too long is gonna like really be a distraction for her. Just these little things that
It's a distraction for anybody.
right? I know. I'm like, exactly, exactly. And so, but there'd be these things pointed out to me that I'm like, thank goodness, that she was there to be able to say it, even if, Lillian was off doing makeup or something and couldn't say it. And so yeah, it was definitely not, it really was not challenging. She just was so incredible.
Wonderful. I
Yeah.
want to talk to you about Gretchen Mol, who's one of my favorite actresses
Yeah.
of all time.
Yeah.
Was there ever a discussion about shaving her head before, you got into those scenes?
Yeah, oh my gosh. I mean, incredible, incredible on and off screen, just like the biggest heart. And I remember talking to her over Zoom when, we had given her the role, and she said, look, I would prefer not to, but if there isn't a way that we can do it where it doesn't look real, then absolutely I'll do it. And I just was so amazed at that answer because I understand, I'm like, this is a smaller indie movie. You're taking a chance on a first-time director, and just all these things that are going through my brain of self-doubt, and just her saying that it gave me just this sigh of relief with, that she trusted us. And thank goodness, we had an incredible hair person who actually worked on SNL, so was very used to working with
Oh,
wigs.
the best. They have the best
Right?
wigs ever.
Right. So I was like, we're in good hands. And she figured out a way to like hand poke hair into a bald cap, and the wig that Gretchen actually shaved was the one that she continued to wear. It was incredible. I mean, you could not tell the difference. And we did camera tests with it, and we all were like, is this working? Because Gretchen kept saying, if this isn't working, I'm more than willing to do this. So I admired that so much about her. And I think that kind of just spoke volumes about her character as well, going into the movie.
Yeah, and they had beautiful chemistry together. Talk about some of the locations. This was your first time directing, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
So talk about some of those locations and how you got them.
Yeah, we shot in Oregon, in Portland. I'd never been. So that was very fun to go and see. And we were there, during for prep and all that, almost like 2 months. And one of the hardest locations to find was this. Initially, how I wrote it in the script was it was a dance studio. And I pictured it with like big windows where you'd see it on the side of the street. And every dance studio we went to, one, it was really tricky, obviously with mirrors, but the scheduling, and oftentimes there'd be, we wouldn't be allowed to repaint. And I was very, myself and my DP were very, aligned with how we wanted the room to look. And at one point we were looking for the competition, high school gymnasium arena. And we went to this school in Oregon that a lot of people shoot at, I guess. It's this abandoned school. And we went downstairs into one of the classrooms and we were like, hang on, this might be something. And the more we looked at it and we're like, well, we can paint it. We could bring in mirrors. That way we can move the mirrors around and not worry about, cameras in them and stuff. And it was just it completely, I was like, let me rewrite the scene so that it takes place in a school. And I almost now can't believe we know, hadn't thought of that prior. It worked out so beautifully, and it's now like it was one of my favorite locations.
Why hobby horsing? I mean, there's so many weird passions that you could choose.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny, I there is that term, called a horse girl, like the girls who were just growing up, you always had one in your class who was so obsessed with horses. And half the time you're like, do you even ride horses, or do you just love them, as an idea? And I truly loved the idea of like humanizing the horse girl in a way, not to say that, they're not, but I love when you can understand someone's just like niche love of something. And I loved the idea of these girls who maybe don't have access to riding horses or things like that, or m- location or money or wherever. If they can't do that, what's the next best thing? And we watched so many videos and documentaries about it, and you just fall in love with these girls because they have the biggest hearts for what they do. And to me, I'm like, that I just hadn't really seen a community like that before. And how they were like, we know it looks weird, but we love it, and this is, once you understand us, that's all you can do is just understand them. And I just absolutely adored it. I loved every part of it.
Where is that horse thing now?
Cheeseburger. It is at the home of our producer, who has an adorable daughter who loves to play with it. So yeah, I believe that that is where she remains at the moment.
That's great.
Yeah,
So, do you find that you're attracted to these coming of age journeys in a way?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's always something that I come back to writing, even, regardless of the age. I think it's always something that, and just female driven, stories and relationships is just something that I've always been drawn to.
What do you think the themes of this film are that you hope, audiences will come away with?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, my biggest one is just acceptance,
Hmm.
and I think that can be, so vague sometimes, but I feel like, not only just acceptance in, how the horse girls react with her, or how she is accepted in a strange way. I never in this film, we never actually say the word autism or anything like that, or explicitly say, like, oh, she's different or anything like that, and nothing othering. And I think, I just wanted to write a story where I'm like, this is a story about this character who happens to be autistic, and not, making it the main giant thing, just like allowing us to find acceptance in all different ways, whether it be like with coworkers, the odd coworkers you get paired with, or the group of girls that you hang out with, or even just, like the ladies at chemo. It's like when she walks in, all of them greet her. I never wanted it to feel like, this was someone that was completely othered by her town and group. And so I think that would be definitely the biggest theme I'd want audiences to walk away with.
And how cool if you get feedback from the horse girls, right?
That honestly, that's been my biggest fear. I just wanted to do it right. We actually even FaceTimed with a young girl who ran the US Hobby Horsing Committee, and her mom.
Love it.
And she was like 11 or 12, and they were putting on the first US hobby horsing competition like a week out of us shooting. And, we were talking with her and I was asking her so many questions. And what was great about it was I'd be like, do you guys like, what kind of shoes do you wear? And she's like, well, some girls wear socks, some wear tennis shoes. It's really whatever you want. And I'd be like, okay, great. And what do you wear? Well, some of us wear workout clothes. Sometimes it's whatever, it's really whatever you want. And I just loved that it was just this a wide accepting community of just there are no rules. It's like, well, there are rules. There are a lot of rules actually, but there were just these other things that, they're clearly so passionate about specifically this sport, and it wasn't anything to do with, this crazy competitiveness or, who has the best this or what are they wearing. I loved that it was just like it clearly came from specifically young women finding each other and doing that and then being like, we'll figure out the rest.
Well, Lauren, it's a lovely film. Best of luck at Tribeca.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take good care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Always news. Always refreshing. Always candid. Always milling about. Robin Milling delivers what celebrities are saying to you.